Peace and love, everybody, and welcome back for another Sunday Hope and Healing session. I'm Royce Fletcher Thomason, and we here during the Sunday Hope and Healing sessions, what we focus on is providing encouragement, support, actual healing in all areas of your life. There, typically, we share some words of encouragement, offer some insights, and then get into some healing utilizing the methodology referred to as transcending the matrix. Dealing with transcending the matrix of third dimensional belief systems of separation and limitation that lead to all of the diseased areas of our lives, all of the areas in our lives that are not operating according to the divine blueprint in which God created us and in which is the perfect um, codec, if you will, for the fulfillment of our lives. All of those things that stand in the way of us being the fullest versions of ourselves, which, yes, does include sickness and dis-ease as it manifests in the body temple. But even the things that show up as sickness and dis-ease within the body itself are the functions of things going on a deeper internal level. They could be things that frequently are, in fact, things that you'd have no idea, no clue necessarily were directly connected to the thing that you're experiencing as a challenge or a problem. I'll say problem as a problem or an issue in your life, whether that's issues related to your finances or challenges as it relates to relationships, things that aren't showing up uh, in accordance with the perfect, I would say, the perfect will of God for your life. Um, Now, this is an actual healing modality. I am also a minister. And so, really, to me, nothing exists outside of God. I'm not going to be able to separate God from this work that I do. From my perspective, that's just how I roll and what I'm about. But the reality is, all of the issues, all of the problems, all of the stressors, essentially, all of the things that are not showing up according to how God designed is a function of some area in our life that needs to be addressed, that needs to be resolved, that needs to be reconciled. And so sometimes during these sessions, we actually have somebody who will actually come on. Either they'll be commenting in the chats or they'll even come on live with me and we'll actually do some healing on the spot. We've actually addressed people with COVID during the sessions. That was some time ago. There have been times where we've helped eliminate pain during the broadcast. Yes, during the live broadcast. So, to anybody and everybody who's here, welcome. We're, as always, sending out a bunch of love in your direction. I hope that your day is going well and that bountiful, bright blessings are uh, unfolding in beautiful, magical ways in your life. And so, our topic, if you will, for today, and the area where we're going to spend some focus on healing, is dealing with forgiving yourself, conquering the struggle of forgiving yourself. Oh boy, this is really important. This is really important. This self forgiveness piece. Why is this self forgiveness piece important? I almost wish I had done this in another room just because of the background that would have created. I feel like it really fits what this Sunday Hope and Healing session is really all about. You know, I think of I think about forgiveness in general as being something that a lot of people really struggle with. A lot of people really struggle with forgiveness. And I'm going to start in the context of forgiving other people, but I'm really focusing, the ultimate focus is really on self forgiveness. A lot of times we have trouble dealing with forgiveness because there are times where we've experienced being violated by somebody else in some way. Maybe we felt that there was some betrayal of some sort. They behaved in a way um, that maybe resulted in some hurt or some pain for us. Uh, maybe we established some boundaries and they didn't honor those boundaries. Maybe they went out of their way, even in some cases, to do us wrong or to cause us harm. Or maybe they didn't go out of their way to do it, but they didn't go out of their way to keep from doing it, perhaps. And so a lot of times we end up sometimes struggling with this whole thing of forgiveness in general, because we feel like if we're forgiving somebody, it's letting them off the hook for what it is that they did. Okay. And so, there's sometimes a resistance, if you will, to forgiveness based on that alone. And a reason that we a lot of times can't forgive other people, and this is why I'm starting it with talking about forgiveness in general and forgiving other people. A lot of us, the reason that we can't forgive other people is because we don't forgive ourselves. A lot of times, a lot of us have struggles with forgiving other people because we can't forgive ourselves, or we have trouble forgiving ourselves, or or we have trouble receiving forgiveness for ourselves, right? Want to kind of unpack that a little bit. I want to kind of unpack that a little bit. A lot of times, one of the things that keeps us from forgiving in general, a thing that's a huge hindrance for us forgiving in general, is our own judgmental nature, right? We're being judgmental of ourselves, we're being judgmental of other people. Now, I will tell you flat out that, well, two things I'm going to tell you. One, God has blessed me to be able to share this work of transcending the matrix and healing with people from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life, different educational levels, people who have not finished high school and people who have doctoral degrees, people of all different um, religious backgrounds. There are people who uh, have received healing and who actually are students of Transcending the Matrix. I actually train people in this methodology as well, from many different religious backgrounds. There are people from a lot of different backgrounds, just in general, period. Ethnically, religiously, um, in terms of nationality, people from different parts of the world, people who really sit on opposite ends of the spectrum of one another, just in a lot of different ways. Now, I myself am a minister, and uh, while a lot of what I share are things that are universal truths, I do personally, uh, come from a Christian context, and in a big part of uh, the religion of Christianity, if you will, is the belief that uh, Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ, died for the sins of the world, for including yours, and those who have accepted that uh, can walk in a different life, right? And even people, while I certainly minister to people who are not identified as Christians, I also most certainly minister to people who are. And even many people within Christianity have a hard time with receiving forgiveness, which is really a huge thing that the whole premise of Christianity is founded upon. And also the extending forgiveness. Struggle with that too. A lot of people really struggle with that. One aspect of forgiveness, a key aspect of forgiveness, is grace. I talk about love a lot. I talk about love a lot in these broadcasts and just in my life in general. I order pizza in the name of love. Love is really a quintessential part of my focus as I'm living through life, right? And so, I quote a lot scripture from the Bible, from the uh, book of First Corinthians, chapter 13, where it's talking about love. It's talking specifically about unconditional love, love that's what I refer to a lot of times as love that is filled with grace, right? And grace is a humongous part of forgiveness. We can't really forgive without extending grace, whether to ourselves or to other people. However, at the same time, anytime that we're failing to forgive, we're also withholding love. Not only are we withholding love from somebody else, but it hits much closer home to that. We're also withholding love from ourselves. And I want to say to you, beloved, that you're worthy of love, that you are absolutely worthy of love. And I realize that there's been some things that you've done that weren't too cool. You've behaved in ways that have hurt other people. You've behaved in ways that hurt yourself. You've behaved in ways that got you into a mess that it took you a long time to get out of. And maybe you're still in the process of getting out of that mess. But I want to say to you today that it's okay to forgive yourself, accept yourself for where you are, and love yourself enough to forgive yourself and move beyond that level of thinking, that mindset that led you to behave in the ways that you behaved in the past. All right? I'm going to make it personal. I'm going to make it personal for me, just in the spirit of transparency. A lot of people see me as being this person that they see me as being today and assume that I've just always been this way. In fact, when I try to tell them that I've not always been this way, they find it hard to believe me. A reality is, I go out of my way today as a person who wants to bring healing into the lives of people because I came to see myself in the error of my ways and how much I caused people to need healing in my past. And it's all not always in my past, even unintentionally now sometimes. Sometimes things that I'll say or things that I do, as unintentionally as it might be, and still bring pain to other people. Never intend to now. In days gone by, I won't necessarily say that was my mindset per se. You know, there were ways that I would use my words to make people feel small. That's not something I want to do anymore. You know, as an eternal romantic, I ended up uh, marrying people that I had no business marrying, and ultimately ended up being unable to stay with them. Truth be told, probably got married because I was afraid to break up with them. And that caused pain not only to them, but to myself, uh, to the children that I never ended up having, to the world in some places, I would think, to who that person is that God had intended for me to end up. Hey, my cousin Deanie is in the space. Hey, Deanie, good to see you here today. Sending a bunch of love to you. And so this whole thing of forgiveness is a thing that people in general have a hard time dealing with. Some people have a hard time forgiving other people because they can't forgive themselves. Some people find it easier to forgive other people than they can forgive themselves. I'm one who falls in that number. But I'm very clear that some people have a hard time forgiving other people because they also don't really know, they also struggle with forgiving themselves. And really, part of what's required for a person to forgive themselves is to recognize your need for forgiveness. You know, ah, that's, to be honest, for me, what makes it easier for me to forgive others is recognizing my own need for grace. From mistakes that I have made, too numerable to list out, you know. I really endeavored this journey in my life to live in alignment with God. I admit that I still don't always get it right. And regularly, I get these little taps on my shoulder from God where where it's pointed out to me, oh, I missed the mark there. I missed the mark there. And when I see that, I immediately endeavor to correct it. Haven't always been that way. Haven't always been receptive to that tap on the shoulder either. Thankfully, by God's grace, today I am. I want to share with you a reason that this whole forgiveness thing is important is because the lack of forgiveness is serving as a blockage in your life. Okay. I heard Tyler Perry. Happy Sunday to you today as well, Melissa Kelly. Good to see you today. I heard Tyler Perry, who's a this man is a billionaire who had once been homeless. He he produces television shows and movies and stuff now. He kind of started off as a playwright though. And for a while he was living in his car trying to do these plays. He put all this money in the plays and nobody was showing up at them. And end up being flat broke, like I said, living in his car. And he came to a point where he had to address some things as far as it related to his relationship with his father. He had this moment of really dealing with that and forgiving his father for who his father wasn't, right? The ways that his father hadn't shown up in his life. And right after he did that, for the first time, he had the door of success open for him. The doors of success open for him. And now, like I said, this man is a billionaire. From homeless to billionaire, connected to forgiving his father, right? Connected to forgiving his father. There are ways in which we block ourselves because of the stuff that we're holding on to. And it could be feelings of guilt. And I'll tell you the reason why I wish I had done this in the other room. In another room, I have this picture on the wall that just speaks to me personally. Not everybody would resonate with it, but it speaks to me personally. And what it essentially is a reminder to me to allow my heart to be light as a feather, to let nothing weigh my heart down. Okay. And a big thing that weighs people's hearts down is sense of guilt and shame, bitterness, resentment. Those are things that weigh people's hearts down. Now, I don't spend as much time and energy in the direction of like resentment and animosity and things of that nature. I won't say I'm completely bereft of it, but that's not so much of a hindrance for me. What is more so, however, is feelings of guilt for decisions that I made that negatively impacted other people and myself. Okay. Um, but to get to that point, you've got to see there are certain things I will never in life do again. That I know for a fact I will never do in life again because I was allowed to see the impact that it had on someone else. And I will never do certain things again because of that. But part of what brings that about is a willingness to be able to see that and a willingness to recognize how one's behavior impacted somebody else, how your words impacted somebody else. Now here's the thing about it. Here's the thing about it. Once you come to recognize the damage that you did or the pain that you caused someone else, especially if it's someone that you love and that you care about, then importance become forgiveness, self-forgiveness becomes really important because it can be very easy to enter into a state of guilt and shame. There could be things that were done to you by other people. You could have been violated in some way by somebody else. And you may need to forgive yourself for that. Forgive yourself for allowing yourself to be in a position where the situation, where the environment was ripe for something bad or something negative to happen to you, right? I don't want to like belabor this a lot, but I do want us to appreciate the importance and the need for self-forgiveness. And we're going to do some work to boost and strengthen us in that area to be able to help us to receive forgiveness more fully and to forgive ourselves more fully. I can forgive other people. Generally speaking, I'm speaking for myself. Generally speaking, I can forgive other people easier than I can forgive myself. Some of you, it may be just the opposite. However, whatever way it goes, I know that there's a need for self forgiveness. I know that there's a need for self forgiveness, right? At some point, I might do a thing on forgiving God too. Almost nobody is willing to acknowledge that they are or have been mad at God about something. But the reality is that deep inside, you have been. Times where things didn't go the way that you thought that they should have gone, times where you felt like God allowed something to happen. You know, a lot of people end up turning away from God because of what God didn't keep from happening, right? Because God didn't switch somebody else's free will. God also doesn't switch your free will either. But anyway, that's going to be a different session. So let's get into this healing for today. God, I know you to be a healer. You are the healer. If you don't do the healing, no healing is really happening. And I know there's nothing beyond your healing power. I give great thanks for being able to be a vessel of healing and to demonstrate you as a healer on the behalf of myself, Melissa, Deanie, anybody else who chooses to tap into and receive this healing. For the point of neutralizing the root cause of all sense of shame, guilt, unrepentance, unforgiveness, all blockages any and every area of our lives that are stemming from ways that we fail to forgive ourselves. From the point of the causal root and the entire energetic structure, every strand of DNA and every cell of our body, every thought process, every neural pathway in our brain, transmuting it into and replacing it with a sense of deep, 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 deep love for ourselves that results in us deeply forgiving ourselves for the errors of our ways and choosing to walk in alignment with your perfect will for our lives. And I bear witness to our wholeness on this date and in this time and space called now. Thank you, God. Thank you for this gift of your divine love. It is done. 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 In Hashem Yeshua HaMashiach, Ashe and Amen. All righty. So let's get into this a little bit. Let's first get into in terms of the perceived need, the perception that we don't need to forgive ourselves. All right. All the things that go into this belief system set up in our minds that we don't need to forgive ourselves. Okay. All right. That we don't need to forgive ourselves because we haven't done anything wrong. Whew. Big break there. Let's invite the love and grace of God into our heart space as it relates to that. Okay. Yes, thank you. All right. The mental poisoning that we've received from other people who wanted to guilt and shame us. All right, so we want to neutralize that mental poisoning, if you will. All righty. 5,200 expressions of that coming from 38 different sources. So we want to call for that to be neutralized through the power of God's pure love. And let's see. I want to deal for a second with forgiving ourselves for accepting invitations to guilt trips. Forgive ourselves for accepting invitations to guilt trips, and at the same time, being able to see and own what errors we've made that have negatively impacted other people. There's a sweet spot in there between owning your stuff and acknowledging the pain that your behavior or lack thereof caused somebody else and not accepting the invitation to a guilt trip. All right. And wanting to genuinely make things right. All right. Let's deal with ears to hear. That's coming up as an issue. All righty. So, what blocks us from having ears to hear when somebody points out to us, where our behavior has negatively impacted them? One of the things that the big thing really is pride. All right. So, we want to transmute that pride into, into genuine openness, to have ears to hear and eyes to see what it is that we're being shown about us. And sometimes what we're being shown about us might be coming through another person, but it might be God's attempt Maybe God speaking to us, you know, through this person about how we can elevate our character, how our character can be refined and purified, right? All right, so let's look at and also another thing that can stand as a blockage, is a hindrance to that beyond pride, is arrogance. And part of that arrogance is, belief that we don't really need to be forgiven. All right, so we want to transmute that arrogance into humility, but not a humility in terms of being humiliated, but a confident humility or humble confidence that you can have the type of relationship with your inner self, that you can have the type of relationship with God, that you can have the kind of relationship with other people is able to unfold in genuinely healthy ways. So we're gonna boost that up. All right. Now that's kind of taking us down on a little bit of another path. Because in every moment, what we're needing, everything connected to forgiveness is really connected to relationships. It just is what it is. And maybe our relationship with another person, and maybe our relationship with ourselves, maybe our relationship with God, and maybe our relationship to the earth. Uh, you know, it's dealing with some way of relating in some shape, form, or fashion. All right, so let's look at something that's coming up right now for me. Is that everybody that we interact with is in some way presenting to us a mirror of ourselves. Sometimes the things that we're really irritated with other people about, sometimes the things we're really irritated with other people about, a lot of times are things that exist in us that we've not acknowledged, right? And they're presenting a mirror to us to show us that. Most people who know me would not consider me to be a selfish person. Most people who know me would not consider me to be a selfish person by any stretch. Have I observed selfishness in other people? Yes, I have. Talked earlier about God giving me these little taps on my shoulder. There are ways that God taps me on my shoulder, sometimes through other people's behavior. Fortunately, God has gotten me to a point now when I observe something in other people, I ask God to show me, how is that the case in me? If I'm feeling some kind of judgment towards somebody else, I'm at a point now where I'll ask God, all right, if I'm seeing this in this person, it means I have eyes to see it. And if I have eyes to see it, this is something that may be operating on, must be on some level operating within me. And I, uh, I have a thing that I've had to acknowledge, a thing that's been a struggle for self forgiveness for me, is I'm a person who never planned to be divorced. I've done it twice. And I realized that me marrying the people that I chose to marry, that was an act of selfishness. That was an act of selfishness because I didn't have a clear signal from God that I was supposed to marry these people. But I didn't want to be responsible for causing somebody else pain, which ended up resulting in a lot of pain for me, and I'd have to say for them too. I'm not sharing this because you might see an exact replica for yourself. But I'm sharing this because it's my own story, and I'm sharing my story to help you identify with whatever your story is, right? There may be something in your life that you're seeing in other people that are taking you to a high degree of frustration or anger or a lot of maybe some other form of negative emotion. And it may be an issue of a decision that you need to make, or maybe the result of decisions that you have made in the past, where you're needing not only to forgive somebody else, but you're needing to forgive yourself as well, right? I can tell you that in 1994, the year that I decided to give my life to God, I also thought a whole lot about my yet unborn children, and I have no children. 29 years later, I have no children. But I felt I'd be a great father, and people who know me feel the same way. Will it ever happen? I don't know, but is that an area I've had to forgive myself? Absolutely, it is. And I want to say that if I can forgive myself, you can forgive yourself. And we're doing this work together. All right. And so, uh, my friend, my brother in ministry, Spencer Murray, I heard him once say that forgiveness is releasing the hope that the past could have been different. Releasing the hope that the past could have been different. All right. So let's address that right now. The hope that the past could have been different. We want to welcome the presence of God's grace-filled love into that part of our thought process where we are holding on to something in the past where we're wishing the past could have been different than it actually was, right? Every day I say the serenity prayer, asking God to grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change. Can you change your past? No, you can't. You can't change the past. And so let's again boost us to surrender the hope that the past could have been different. Doesn't mean surrendering hope. Surrendering hope that the past could have been different is necessary. Hoping that the future can be different is also necessary. I believe anyway. All right, so let's look at fear of letting go of the past. Well, first of all, let's look at fear of letting go. Let's invite the presence of God's love into the places where we have a fear of letting go. Sometimes what we are afraid to let go of, sometimes we're afraid to let go of the animosity because it's become like a companion in our lives. It's been with us so darn long. Sometimes we're afraid to let go of the animosity. Sometimes we're afraid to let go of the resentment, the anger. Sometimes we're afraid to let go of the shame. Sometimes we're afraid to let go of the guilt. Sometimes we're afraid to let go of the judgment that we have towards somebody else, the judgment that we have towards ourselves, the judgment that somebody else has towards us, the judgment that we think that God is judging us, right? So, in terms of that fear of letting go, we want to invite the presence of God's love into that space and to replace that fear of letting go with enthusiasm of holding on to something that's better than the thing that we've been afraid of letting go of, right? Okay. Now, specifically in terms of fear of letting go of the past is in the past, but holding on to it can make a recipe for it also being your future. So let's work on leaving the past in the past, allowing ourselves to love ourselves in the present, truly, deeply, and passionately love ourselves in the present, enough to be present and to trust that as we operate how we need to operate in the present, that the future unfolds beautifully. All right? I'll boost us up in that area. All right, thank you. Thank you, God. All right, so let's look at outside voices that want to hold us in our past. Outside voices that want to hold us in our past. And now let's look at the inside voices that want to hold us in our past. That's actually coming up as a bigger issue than the other one. The inside voices, the stuff that we're saying inside that wants to hold us to our past, hold us in our past. All right. The story that we tell ourselves about ourselves, and the stories we tell other people about ourselves. That's coming up as a really big issue right now. All right. We want that to be purified through the power of God's pure love and transmuted into telling a healthier story, a story of deliverance, a story of transformation, a story of how in our surrender we gained more than we ever had in our past. Story of grace, story of how forgiveness is actually manifested in our lives. All righty, something that I'm going to get at. This is coming up right now. It's forgiveness relative to decisions that other people ended up making in their lives. Maybe you're a parent who has or has had a wayward child. Maybe you're a teacher whose students didn't really turn out so well. Maybe you're a person who was responsible for somebody and you failed to adequately live up to that responsibility. Maybe you're a person who was unfaithful in your marriage or your relationship. Maybe you're a person who displayed some type of lack of integrity as it related to something related to money. Maybe you're a person who lied to cover up your tracks. I want you to invite the presence of God's love into that space within you. Where the misdeed occurred, the space within you that led you to make that decision or those decisions, whatever they may have been. Now, there may be a voice that might be speaking to you telling you you don't deserve forgiveness. Fact of the matter is that nobody really deserves forgiveness. Forgiveness is an expression of grace. Grace is not based on what we've earned. All right? And so grace is actually a gift. So we silence the voices of negativity. We silence the part of us that tries to edge God out. The part of us that says that we deserve the bad that's coming our way in our lives. The part of us that says we don't deserve the good that's trying to come to us or the good that's there, that we don't allow ourselves to receive it. The part of us that might feel like damaged goods because of some violation that happened to us or some way that we violated someone else. We welcome in the beauty of God's grace into those spaces within us to transform our inner beingness, to really receive the deep, deep, deep forgiveness that our souls ultimately long for. An ability for us to have the courage to forgive ourselves and eventually other people as well. Strengthen our ability to stand resolute and not only forgiving ourselves, but in taking on new ways of thinking and being and behaving that are in alignment with our highest and best selves, according to who we were divinely created to be. All right. In that spirit, God, thank you for the healing that's taken place on today. Thank you for helping us to more readily forgive ourselves, to more readily to receive the forgiveness from you that we all need, to eventually get to the point where we can forgive others more readily as well. Thank you for showing up in us today. And thank you for your blessings upon each and every one of us. It is done, it is done, it is done, it is done. Ashe and amen. All righty, beloved. Well, that pretty much wraps us up for today. Hope that you all are doing well and that you've gotten some benefit from this today. At the end of the day, whatever we're facing in our lives, it's always an inside job. The problems that are showing up in our lives, we think a lot of times it's somebody else's fault, but at the end of the day, it's all on us. That doesn't mean we need to feel guilty or shameful about it. But as we do the work, we can get to a point where the things that have been issues won't continue to be issues. We open ourselves up for negativity when we dwell in a state of negativity. That means we're aligning with the negativity. The more we're aligning with the perfect will of God for our lives, the more we see that showing up in our lives. Anyway, I am always glad to be here with you, sharing with you. If you're at all interested in training, I'm more than happy to share it with you. We've got a class coming up the first weekend in August, August 4th, 5th, and 6th. That's a Friday through a Sunday. We're glad to share this with you. And I know that me doing this, you don't really see what's actually happening. You don't really see all the stuff that's actually happening. I've been in situations where people said that they saw light flying off of my hands, situations where they saw like humongous angels standing behind me. The things that you hear me saying aren't really where the magic is really happening. Okay. Greetings, Oso Sherry. Hope that your day is going well. We've had so many situations where people's health has been totally transformed, where certain life circumstances with people have been totally transformed. And, as I say all the time to the people who've done training in Transcending the Matrix, this work that called Transcending the Matrix, anybody who's trained to do it can do it as well as me. All right. I've seen some phenomenal stuff happen with thousands of people all over the earth. Um, and it doesn't require that a person is physically present with you or any of that. All right. But anyway, again, if you're interested in training, reach out to me either on Facebook or on Instagram at Royce Fletcher Thomason. You can also reach out on Instagram at Transcending the Matrix. I know transcending, the spelling might trip people up sometimes, so you can always enter my name and comment that way. Also, if you appreciated what's happened today and what it is that we're doing, we certainly extend the opportunity for you to sow into yourself via sowing into this particular work. You can do so via Cash App at $Royce F. Thomason. That's Cash App at $Royce F. Thomason. And we believe that God is blessing you for what you're contributing into your own well-being and into this work that we're doing. We want to be able to reach as many people as possible. With that said, if you're not subscribed to the Matrix Healing channel on YouTube, we hope that you will. Matrix Healing, all one word. If you know somebody that you feel will be blessed by this session today, please share it with them. If you're sharing it on Facebook, I'm always appreciative for everybody who shares. I do ask, though, if you're sharing it, say why you're sharing it rather than just sharing it and not putting any words with it. Tell the people who might be visiting your page why it is that you want them to see it, so they'll be more inclined to actually open it up and watch it. The more people who watch the content, the way the algorithms work is the more people they push it out to. It's so important to me for as many people as possible to get healing. The reality is that we're not healed alone. Every time you get some healing, every time somebody else gets some healing, it's of benefit to all of us. It's good for all of us. The less brokenness there is in the world, the less chaos and confusion there is in the world, the more healing there is in the world, the better it is for all of us. Anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. As always, I send you all forth with peace and love. Catch you next time.